In the forsaken hollow of Kine Valley, where winters carry death on their breath and summers swarm with flies, the Blackwood family has remained apart from the world for 8 long generations. Their farmhouse leans crooked against the tree line, its windows like jaundiced eyes glaring out in suspicion, ever watchful for intruders. The locals know to steer clear. They've heard the howls that echo not from the woods, but from within those warped walls. At dusk, more than one traveler has sworn to see shapes crawling on all fours across the property. Some whisper it all began with old Eli Blackwood, who once brought 3 half-wild dogs into his bed during a raging blizzard. He claimed they saved his life with their heat, yet his bloodline never seemed the same afterward. In their eyes, in their twisted grins, even in the way their jaws seemed to hinge open too wide, when they laughed, something less than human lingers. The battered pickup truck groaned and rattled against the unforgiving mountain road as Dr. Morgan Hayes squinted at the creased, weather-beaten map stretched across her lap. Beside her, Leo Chen shifted his camera bag, protectively holding it tight against the jolting ride. "You're sure about this?" Leo asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Kine Valley doesn't even exist on Google Maps." Morgan traced her finger along a faint, fading line. "That's exactly why it matters. 8 generations of genetic isolation in one place, it's anthropological gold." The truck swung around a bend, and before them appeared a modest cluster of worn-down buildings, the town of Millbrook. The last flicker of civilization before the valley swallowed the road. Their driver, a man who hadn't uttered a word since they'd left the bus station, finally spoke as he rolled to a stop before the town's only diner. "This is as far as I go," he muttered. No one from Millbrook drives into the valley after dark. Morgan handed him his pay and stepped out into the sharp bite of autumn air. "We'll find someone else to take us the rest of the way." Inside the diner, conversation faltered the moment they walked in. Not hostile silence, but weighted, uneasy. Every eye followed them. A waitress, 60-ish hair, an improbable shade of red, approached, setting steaming coffee before them without waiting for an order. "You folks lost?" she asked. "Actually, we're researchers," Morgan said, flashing her university ID. "Dr. Morgan Hayes. This is my colleague, Leo Chen. We're studying cultural evolution in isolated rural communities." The woman Darlene, her name tag read, narrowed her eyes slightly. "And you're headed to Kine Valley." It wasn't a question. Leo nodded, sipping cautiously. "We heard the Blackwood family has lived there for generations without much outside contact." A grizzled man at the counter turned his beard, streaked with grey, his watery eyes sharp despite age. "You don't want to go pestering those folks. They keep to themselves for good reason." Morgan leaned forward, curiosity alight. "What reason would that be?" He traded a glance with Darlene before speaking. "They're different. Been inbreeding up there since before my granddaddy's time. They come to town for supplies twice a year," Darlene added quietly. "Always the same 2 men. Don't speak, don't linger. Cash only. Leave before sundown." Morgan scribbled in her notebook. "And you've noticed nothing unusual about their appearance, their behavior." Now the diner went utterly still. "Earl, that was the man's name," Darlene called him, so cleared his throat. "They walk strange, kind of hunched. And their teeth." He faltered, reconsidering. "Let's just say my daddy told me stories that would curl your toes." What sort of stories? Leo pressed. Earl shook his head. Just old tales. Best left alone. Morgan shifted tactics. Then perhaps you can point us towards someone willing to drive us closer. We'll pay well. Darlene gave a humorless laugh. Honey, there ain't enough money in this world to get a Millbrook soul to the Blackwood place after September. Winter comes fast up there. Roads turn mean. We have our own vehicle. Leo lied smoothly. Just need directions. A younger man rose from a corner booth, tall and lean, the look of someone used to working the land. I'll take you. Not all the way, but as far as where the road forks. You can walk the last mile. Jason Collins, Darlene snapped. Your mama would have a fit. 200, Jason said flatly, ignoring her. And we leave now, back before dark. Morgan nodded relief in her face. Deal. As they gathered their things, Earl caught Morgan's arm, lowering his voice. If they invite you inside, he warned, don't stay past sundown. And for God's sake, don't sleep there. Jason's truck, though, newer, rattled just as hard along the twisting ascent. The trees grew thicker, swallowing much of the afternoon light, the shadows stretching long and black. So, Morgan asked as the road narrowed, what's the real story with the Blackwoods? Jason's eyes never left the path. Folks around here are superstitious, he said. The Blackwoods? They're just private folk, Jason said after a long silence. Isolated too long, maybe. That'll twist anyone. He hesitated, then added voice lower. But even I won't go near their land after nightfall. It's the sounds that do it. Sounds. Leo perked up, leaning forward. Like dogs, Jason muttered, his knuckles whitening on the wheel. But not quite. He swallowed hard. My brother and I went hunting near their property once. Heard things I can't explain. The truck rounded a final bend before stopping where the road forked. To the right, a shadowed trail vanished into dense trees. Jason pointed. That way. Mile or so. You'll see the house. I'll wait here 1 hour, no longer. Morgan and Leo shouldered their gear and stepped into the path. The forest closed around them like a living thing, ancient and watchful. What do you think we'll find? Leo asked, camera already ready in his hands. 8 generations of isolation can do strange things to a gene pool. Morgan replied, adjusting her backpack map tucked safe inside. Still, I suspect the legends are exaggerated, but with each step, the feeling of unseen eyes pressing in grew heavier. Twice Leo spun around, certain he heard footsteps dogging them. The third time, both heard it. The soft, steady padding of something keeping pace in the underbrush. Just a deer, Morgan said, though her voice betrayed unease. Then, abruptly, the trees broke into a clearing. There it stood, the Blackwood farmhouse. 3 stories high, its walls stitched together from mismatched generations of building, its chimneys coughing smoke into the cooling air. Outbuildings dotted the property, all weathered, yet strangely well kept. My God, Leo whispered, raising his camera. It's like stepping back in time. He snapped the first shot just as the front door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered. His gait was wrong, his movements heavy, yet oddly fluid, as though his joints bent at peculiar angles. He stopped at the porch's edge, his face cloaked in shadow, watching. That'll be Abraham Blackwood. Morgan murmured, the current patriarch. According to my research, is it just me? Leo cut in, lowering the camera, or does his face look strange? Before she could answer, Abraham spoke. His voice was deep rough, with an accent belonging to no place at all. You're trespassing on private land. State your business or be gone. Morgan stepped forward, her professional smile fixed in place. Mr. Blackwood, I'm Dr. Morgan Hayes, Eastern State University. This is my colleague Leo Chen. We're documenting isolated communities for an anthropological study. We'd be honored if you'd allow us to include your family. Abraham descended the steps into the dying light. Both researchers forced themselves not to recoil. His face was unnaturally long, the jaw too broad for the skull, the brow heavy, and shadowing eyes that gleamed amber like an animal's reflecting the light unnervingly. Anthropologists, he repeated the word clumsy in his mouth. Studying us like specimens. Not at all, Morgan assured him. We're interested in your history, your traditions, how your family has endured. For a long moment, Abraham studied them. Curtains twitched in the windows behind him. Pale figures shifted, watching. 8 generations, he said at last. 8 generations we've kept to ourselves. And now, you come with your questions. Leo raised his camera slightly. At once, Abraham's gaze snapped to it, sharp as a blade. His jaw tightened. Then slowly he gave a curt nod. You may photograph the property, not the family, not without each one's permission. He seemed to decide something, then his too wide mouth stretching into what might have been meant as a smile. You've traveled far. Night falls soon. Come inside. Meet the family. We'll speak of your study. Morgan remembered Earl's hushed warning. Don't stay past sundown. Don't sleep there. But the chance was too rare to lose. We'd be honored, she said brightly, ignoring Leo's flicker of alarm. Abraham turned, leading them toward the house. His shadow stretched long and twisted across the dirt path, his movements smooth yet unsettling, as though borrowed from another species. Leo lifted his camera, capturing the silhouette, the profile of a man whose face seemed in the low light almost snout-like. This land's been ours since 1872, Abraham said, words rolling strangely as if his tongue was too large for his mouth. Leigh Blackwood. My great-great-great-grandfather claimed it after the war. Morgan noted carefully that would make Abraham the 8th generation. The 8th, Abraham confirmed when she mentioned it. His lips curled. The most advanced. Morgan and Leo exchanged uneasy glances at his choice of phrase. As they neared the house, movement rippled at the edges of their vision, figures slipping from window to window, darting between sheds. Some walked with Abraham's same strange loping gait. Others scuttled almost on all fours before vanishing into the gloom. My family is shy, Abraham said, sensing their stares. Outsiders unsettle them. We get few visitors. How many live here? Morgan asked, counting faces in the glass. 22, Abraham answered without hesitation. 4 generations. All under one roof. The porch groaned as they stepped onto it. Leo lifted his camera again, capturing the hand-carved door etched with markings that looked less like decoration, more like a crest. Intertwined human and canine forms twisted together in wood. Abraham pushed the door open. Inside, the air hit them at once, heavy with wood smoke roasting meat. And beneath it, a musk that raised the hairs on the back of Morgan's neck, a scent she couldn't quite place. The entryway opened into a wide common room, dominated by a massive stone fireplace. Heavy handcrafted furniture filled the space, sturdy, worn built to last. Every detail spoke of self-reliance, a family withdrawn from modern conveniences and untouched by the outside world. Martha Abraham called, his voice carrying a strange cadence, almost like a bark. "We have guests." From the doorway of what must have been the kitchen, a woman emerged. Her movements were smooth but wrong in some subtle way. Shoulders hunched forward, arms hanging, a little too long. Her face bore the same elongated features as Abraham, though her jaw was softer, less pronounced. Her eyes, however, glowed with the same amber light reflecting the fire's glow in an animal-like shimmer. "Researchers," Abraham explained. "They study our ways." Martha's nostrils flared, and Morgan felt an odd, almost primal chill, as if she were being scented rather than looked at. "Welcome," Martha said, her voice higher than expected, almost lilting. "We've prepared supper. You'll join us." Before Morgan could reply, a child burst into the room, running on all fours before springing upright. A girl, 7 or 8 perhaps. Her face was nearly human, save for the sharp points of her incisors when she smiled. Sarah Martha snapped the word underpinned by a low growl. "What have I told you about running indoors?" The girl bowed her head submissively. "Sorry, Mother." Leo's camera came up instinctively, but he lowered it quickly when Abraham cleared his throat in warning. "May I document the interior?" Leo asked carefully. "Not the family, just the house as you requested." Abraham considered, then gave a slow nod. "Common areas only. Some rooms are private." As Leo moved about, capturing the space, Morgan engaged Martha. She answered sparingly, offering little beyond what they already guessed, that the family lived off the land, growing crops, raising livestock, and venturing to town only when necessity forced them. During their talk, other family members appeared briefly in doorways and hallways. Adolescents with long limbs and awkward loping strides. Elders bent and hunched, their overbites. Prominent movements pained, yet animalistic. Morgan began to notice a pattern: the younger the member, the more human they appeared. "Your daughter," Sarah Morgan said carefully. "She seems different." Martha's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. "The traits strengthen with age. She's still young." From deeper in the house came noises. Half words, half barks, followed by unsettling laughter that raised the hair along Morgan's arms. "The men prepare for tonight's hunt." Martha explained, her tone matter of fact. "We keep to old ways here." Leo rejoined them, face pale as he reviewed the images on his camera. He caught Morgan's eye and gave a subtle nod toward the door. "We should return before dark," he said quickly. "Our driver's waiting." Abraham stepped from the hallway, massive frame moving with eerie silence. "Nonsense. You'll stay. Meet the family properly over supper." His tone was not a suggestion. "Besides, the weather's turning. Roads are unsafe after nightfall." As if summoned by his words, rain began tapping against the glass, thunder rolling faintly beyond the valley. Morgan's stomach sank. Their exit had just been cut off. "We insist." Martha added, her smile exposing teeth too sharp, too many to belong entirely to a human mouth. Morgan forced her professional mask into place. "We'd be honored." and grateful for whatever history you're willing to share. Abraham's mouth stretched into a smile that felt more like a baring of teeth. Oh, we have much to share, Dr. Hayes. By morning, you'll understand our family quite intimately. The dining room stretched longer than Morgan expected, dominated by a massive oak table worn smooth by generations. Antique silverware, tarnished but fine, was laid beside chipped china, each piece clearly handed down through decades. As Morgan examined the forks and spoons, she noticed faint grooves in the metal marks like teeth. Abraham sat at the head of the table, Martha to his right. Morgan and Leo were placed halfway down, flanked on both sides by family members of varying ages. The arrangement wasn't random. Morgan realized it was structured. The more human-looking members nearest the guests, while the most distorted faces lingered at the far end. We hunt our own meat, Abraham declared, as Martha and 2 adolescent daughters carried out heavy platters. Tonight's catch was lively. The venison was barely cooked. Blood seeping across the plates, the family devoured it eagerly, tearing into flesh with wet smacks, many of them scarcely using cutlery at all. Some of the elders bit straight through bone, their elongated incisors glistening red. Morgan forced herself to take small, careful bites, determined to observe rather than recoil. Beside her, Leo pushed his food around his plate, eyes fixed firmly downward. The venison was gamey, almost sweet, unlike anything Morgan had ever tasted. "How long have your people been studying others?" asked an elderly man across the table. His face bore the most advanced transformation of anyone present. Jawbone jutting outward, nose and mouth pressed together into what could only be described as a muzzle. Anthropology has existed as a formal discipline since the late 19th century, Morgan replied evenly. Though truthfully, humans have always been curious about other cultures. The old man released a sound between a laugh and a growl. Curious, yes, like pups sniffing at something strange. But true understanding, that is rare. Further down the table, a teenage boy leaned forward, his voice wavering awkwardly between pitches. "Do you study animals too, or just people?" His fingers were longer than they should have been, nails thickened almost claw-like. "My focus is on human communities," Morgan said carefully, though her gaze flicked to his hands. But the boundary between human and animal behavior is far blurrier than most realize. That remark prompted knowing glances among the family. Abraham tore a strip of meat with his teeth. Very true. Humans like to pretend they're not animals. We Blackwoods never forgot. From her seat further down, little Sarah piped up proudly. "We sleep with the dogs just like great-great-great-great-grandpa Eli did." Sarah Martha snapped her scolding, edged with a low growl. "That's enough." Leo seized the pause. "You keep dogs, then I haven't seen any around the property." A hush swept the table. Abraham slowly dabbed his mouth with a napkin, concealing what might have been a smile. "The relationship between the Blackwoods and canines is complex," he said at last. "Perhaps tomorrow we'll show you the kennels." Several family members stiffened at the suggestion. Martha's hand shook faintly as she reached for her water glass. "Your family has lived in isolation for generations," Morgan interjected, redirecting the conversation. "Have there ever been attempts to integrate more with neighboring communities?" An elderly woman who had remained silent until now let out a bitter laugh. The sound began as human, and ended in something disturbingly like a howl. "They called us mongrels," she said, eyes flashing, even before the changes were plain to see. "Enough, Aunt Judith," Abraham commanded. The woman instantly lowered her gaze, shoulders folding inward, every inch of her posture submissive. Morgan filed the interaction away. It was pack behavior with Abraham as alpha. "We keep to ourselves," Martha said smoothly, "because outsiders could never understand our ways. Our traditions are sacred. Like sleeping with dogs, Leo pressed, unable to resist, following Sarah's slip. Abraham's amber gaze locked on him sharp and unblinking. Our ancestors discovered that sharing warmth and space with canines forged a bond beyond the usual master and pet. Over generations, that bond has deepened. The meaning hung thick in the air. Morgan glanced around the table. She saw the proof in every amber eye, every distorted jaw, every hunched posture. "Genetic mutation," she murmured, the scientist, in her briefly overtaking her unease. "Fascinating. We prefer to call it evolution," Abraham replied, lips stretching into an unsettling smile. "Now, who would like to hear the story of Eli Blackwood and how our family's transformation began?" As his voice filled the room, Morgan noticed Sarah slipping quietly from the table. The girl caught her eye and gave the faintest beckon before vanishing through a side door. Under the table, Morgan tapped Leo's leg, a silent signal they'd perfected in fieldwork. Something was amiss, and that child might be their only thread of truth. After supper, Abraham guided them into a sitting room where a fire blazed in a stone hearth. The walls were lined with shelves packed with leather-bound volumes, their spines cracked and flaking with age. "My family has always cherished records," Abraham said, gesturing proudly. "Every Blackwood generation has written its own history." While Leo distracted him with polite questions about their way of life, Morgan drifted toward the shelves. The books were mostly journals, each neatly labeled with a generation number and name. Her hand lingered on one marked Eli Blackwood, first generation. "May I?" she asked. Abraham hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Our history belongs to us, but perhaps a scholar may appreciate it." The book was heavier than expected, bound not in standard leather, but in what looked disturbingly like animal hide. The pages were fragile yellowed, yet the writing remained crisp, tight, disciplined, the hand of a man with military training. Morgan opened to the first entry, dated November 1872. "The blizzard came early this year. Nearly caught me on my return from town. Would have frozen if not for the wild dogs. 3 of them had sought shelter in the same cave. We shared warmth at night. Strange beasts larger than wolves, yet unlike any dog I've ever seen. When the storm broke, they followed me home. I've named them Shadow Ghost and Hunt." Turning the page, Morgan found more entries, each chronicling Eli's deepening attachment. December 1872. "The animals sleep in my bed now. My wife disapproves, but their warmth keeps the frost from my bones. Their presence soothes the war-haunted dreams that torment me." January 1873. "Today I growled at a peddler. The sound came unbidden from my throat, a guttural growl that startled even me. The dogs approved, standing firm at my side until the peddler retreated down the path. Later, I caught myself staring into the woods with a sharpened awareness, catching scents I had never noticed before." Morgan skimmed forward several pages. August 1873. My wife insists my face is changing, says my jaw juts forward more than before. Foolishness. Yet, my eyes pierce the dark with ease now. Sounds carry to me differently, clearer, stronger. She flipped further ahead, pausing on an entry from 1880. My son shows the changes too. His mother fears him, but I see only strength. The dogs accept him as one of their own. We sleep together, man-boy, and beasts our own pack. I've sent my wife to her sisters. She will never understand what we are becoming. Her breath caught at a later entry from 1885. The original hounds are gone, but their bloodline thrives. My son has taken a wife from town. She trembles at our ways, yet she will bend. The line must endure. I've discovered our saliva carries the change. Already my son's wife shows the first signs. Our pack grows stronger. Morgan Abraham's voice cut through her thoughts. She looked up. Startled, he stood far closer than she'd realized, having moved with uncanny silence. It's remarkable, she said quickly, academic curiosity smothering her unease. He describes physiological changes consistent with some genetic mutation. Did Eli ever seek medical attention? Abraham chuckled, the sound edged with a growl. Doctors would have branded it madness. Eli knew better. He understood it as evolution. Evolution doesn't occur in a single generation, Morgan countered. Conventional evolution. Abraham slid the journal from her hands, replacing it roughly on the shelf. But what if those first dogs passed something to Eli? Something that rewrote the code of what it means to be human. Leo, who had drifted to the window, spoke without turning. Those original dogs, what were they? Neither wolf nor dog Abraham murmured, his hand grazing the spines of the journals. Something between. As we are now. Morgan's mind raced parasites, viral agents, prions, any of them capable of reshaping DNA expression. If I could see the later journals, I could trace the progression. Abraham's expression hardened. Some records are private. Family matters. Before she could reply, a howl ripped through the house. It was wrong, too human for a dog, too animal for a man. Abraham's head jerked toward the sound, amber eyes glinting. You must be weary, he said suddenly. Martha will show you to your room. Room singular, Leo asked, rejoining them. We have limited accommodations, Abraham answered curtly, already leading them away. The storm worsens. You'll stay the night. Almost on cue, Martha appeared. This way, please. As they followed, Morgan cast one last glance toward the shelves. Eli's journal had been shoved back askew, its placement hasty. Later, she promised herself. The truth of this family was bound into those pages. Martha's nostrils flared subtly as Morgan passed, as though scenting her like prey. The guest room sat at the end of a dim corridor on the second floor. A single iron-framed bed dominated the space alongside a basin and a wooden chair. The wallpaper peeled in layers, revealing older patterns beneath, like the strata of the house's long memory. One bed, Leo muttered after Martha departed. Cozy. You can have it, Morgan replied briskly, already unpacking her recorder. I'll be working. Leo tested the mattress. It sagged alarmingly. Think they're making a point with the sleeping arrangements. They're isolated, not hostile. Morgan insisted, though her voice wavered. She placed a digital recorder near the door. I'll keep this running tonight, just in case. In case of what Leo smirked, the family that growls together. Morgan shot him a look. In case they talk about us, standard ethnographic precaution. Outside, the storm battered the window. Rain slashed against the glass, trapping them until dawn. Leo checked the latch, then moved to the door. No lock. Were guests, not prisoners, Morgan reminded him, though she wedged the chair under the knob. Leo set up his camera gear, scrolling through the day's shots. Some of these you need to see. Morgan leaned in. One image showed Abraham in profile, the jut of his jaw sharper than she recalled. Another captured an elder whose ears tapered to distinct points. Genetic traits manifesting as animalistic features, she murmured, but not passed strictly by inheritance. The changes worsen with age. Exactly, Leo said. The children look almost normal. The adults? He shook his head. It's like the transformation blooms over time. Morgan thought of Sarah the child at supper who had beckoned her. Or perhaps at puberty. That would mean a triggered expression, hormonal, maybe viral. A sudden noise outside silenced them. Nails clicking on wood, heavy footsteps in tandem. Something large prowled the hallway, dog-like, yet accompanied by a biped's weight. Leo lifted his camera, but Morgan gestured sharply. No. The steps halted outside their door. Shadows shifted beneath the gap. A wet, sniffing sound followed. Morgan held her breath. At last, the presence moved on. Jesus, Leo whispered. What was that? I don't know, Morgan admitted. But I'm beginning to think the legends about this family hold more truth than anyone guessed. As night deepened, the house stirred with uncanny life. Howls rose from below. Not dog, not human, but something uncanny between. Scraping noises suggested claws on wood. Voices muttered in the hall, words tangled with canine growls. Sometime after 2, Morgan shook Leo awake. Listen. A rhythmic pounding echoed through the house, followed by peals of barking laughter. That's it, Leo hissed, reaching for his phone. We're calling someone. No signal, Morgan reminded. And the storm's still raging. Then we leave at dawn. Leo raked a hand through his hair. These people, or whatever they are, this is the anthropological find of the century. A family exhibiting actual canine traits, Morgan finished. We need evidence before we go. Evidence. Leo stared at her. Did you miss the part where Abraham basically admitted they've been breeding with dogs for 8 generations? Not breeding with, Morgan corrected sharply. Living alongside, something transmissible in their saliva, viral prion-altering gene expression. It's unprecedented. Their argument broke off at the sound of scratching at the door. Not claws this time, but small, deliberate fingers. Morgan eased the chair aside and cracked the door. Sarah crouched in the hallway, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You shouldn't be here, the child whispered. They hunt when the moon is full. Who hunts? Morgan's voice was low, careful. The elders. Sarah whispered, eyes flicking down the hallway. The ones who've finished the chain. Her nervous glance betrayed the risk of even speaking. I shouldn't be talking to outsiders, but you seem kind. I don't want you to end up like the others. The others Leo pressed, stepping closer to the doorway beside Morgan. The ones who came before, Researchers, watchers, they never left. Her voice had shrunk to a rasp, barely audible. Then a door creaked open, somewhere deeper in the house. Sarah froze, head jerking up, nostrils flaring like an animal catching scent. I have to go. Lock your door. Don't open it until morning. No matter what you hear. And before they could utter another word, she was gone, vanishing into the corridor on all fours. Her movement unsettling, too swift, too primal. Morgan shoved the chair back under the knob. We need to find the earlier research files, she murmured. Tomorrow, while they are distracted. But the night gave them no peace. From beyond the walls rose a sound, long, mournful, almost human. A howl. Voices answered inside the house, a chorus that prickled Morgan's skin with dread. Scientific discovery of the century. Leo muttered, his sarcasm tight with fear. If we live long enough to publish it, by morning during the household's noisy bustle, Leo slipped away with his camera. Mist clung low to the ground, the kind that turns every shadow into suggestion. Perfect for capturing what lurked here. He photographed the outbuildings, barn woodshed, smokehouse, and then the kennel. But there were no dogs. Instead, the structure's details made his stomach tighten. Heavy iron bands braced the doors, narrow windows barred like a prison. As his lens framed the image, a faint sound leaked from inside. Not a bark, not even animal, a low broken whine. Human, he froze. Before he could edge closer, something shifted at the tree line. A hunched figure, unmistakably Blackwood in gait, slipped into the woods. Caution waned. Curiosity won. He followed. The forest opened after 50 yards into a hidden clearing. There, among moss and leaning oaks, stood dozens of gravestones. Weather-worn, half-sunken into the earth. The Blackwood family cemetery. Leo lifted his camera hands, steady only by habit. The earliest stones bore dates from the 1870s Eli Blackwood's time. His grave dominated the rest, an elaborate monument. Yet beneath his name, Leo found something wrong, a carving part. Man's face, part canine muzzle merging in unnatural symmetry. The further he moved through generations, the clearer the shift became. Second-generation graves showed paw prints paired with human handprints. By the fourth, figures with stretched limbs and bestial outlines. The most recent stones, only a few years old, depicted beings scarcely human, at all hunched-furred with muzzles raised in eternal snarl. The family's transformation carved in stone, Leo whispered, recording each grotesque evolution. At the cemetery's edge, one grave stood apart. A crude marker outsiders. The soil here was fresher, unsettled. He leaned in with his camera when the sharp snap of a twig jolted him. A figure stood watching one of the Blackwood sons, perhaps 17, maybe 18. Leo recognized him from Dinner Caleb. But his body already bore the signs, jaw stretched forward posture, bent in that lupine curve. "You shouldn't be here," Caleb said, voice warped, teeth flashing too sharp. "This place is private." Leo lowered the camera slightly, though not enough to turn it off. "I'm documenting history. Your father gave permission for the property. The cemetery is different." Caleb stepped closer. Movements smooth, unnatural. The stones tell too much. They tell a remarkable story, Leo countered, clinging to science as a shield. A genetic mutation spanning generations. Eli began a transformation that still runs through you all. Caleb's amber eyes glinted. Transformation, yes, but you don't understand. It isn't sickness. It isn't mutation. It's evolution. Leo steadied himself. Explain it. We're becoming more than human. Stronger, sharper, connected. Caleb inhaled, nostrils flaring. I can smell your fear right now. I can trace your path across every acre. I can hear your heart hammering. Leo's grip on the camera tightened. He nodded toward the unmarked grave. And them, the outsiders. Did they become better too? Caleb's face hardened, lips curling back over predatory teeth. Some tried to help. Others tried to expose us. But none understood. None grasped what we are becoming. And what is that? Caleb shifted his stance, subtle, dangerous. The next predator. Not man, not wolf. Greater than both. Leo raised the camera, not to take a picture, but as a trembling barrier. Your father mentioned kennels. Are there others like you, elsewhere? Caleb only laughed, the sound, low, almost a growl. The sound carried a canine resonance unmistakable and unsettling. The kennels, Caleb said, tilting his head, studying Leo with a predator's patience, are for family who resist the change, who fight what they are becoming. His nostrils flared. You're thinking of running. I can smell the adrenaline. Leo forced his voice to stay level. Just continuing my documentation. Morgan and Dr. Hayes will be expecting me soon. Your colleague Caleb's lips curled more smirk than smile. She's having her own education with my father. He stepped closer, amber eyes gleaming. I could show you the kennels, if you're so curious. Show you what happens to those who deny their nature. Before Leo could answer, movement stirred in the trees. Morgan emerged, breath uneven, Abraham looming just behind her. There you are. She called, her tone deliberately casual, though her eyes betrayed urgency. Abraham's offered to show us the main barn before we leave. Abraham's heavy hand clamped on Caleb's shoulder, a warning disguised as a fatherly gesture. My son was just explaining our family history, I trust. Leo lowered his camera. Fascinating genealogy. The headstones tell quite a story. A private story, Abraham corrected smoothly, though his smile never touched his eyes. One that does not translate well in photographs. You'll delete them before you depart. It wasn't a suggestion. Leo glanced at Morgan, caught her faint nod. Of course he lied. Just curiosity. As they walked back toward the house, Leo felt the subtle choreography. Abraham in front, Caleb behind, herding them like prey animals. Back inside, Morgan pulled Leo into the corner of the sitting room, her voice low and urgent. Abraham stood in the kitchen with Martha. Their murmured exchange too quiet to catch. We have to leave, Morgan hissed. I found Sarah's drawings. The transformation worsens with every generation. And she told me about a doctor who came here. Leo, they killed him. Leo's jaw tightened. I found a mass grave marked outsiders. Their cemetery maps out the progression stone by stone. He turned his camera on to show her, then froze. His brows knitted. What the hell? Image after image scrolled past blank. The photos from the cemetery gone. All of them. Morgan fumbled for her phone. Mine too. The drawings deleted. That's not possible, Leo muttered. I never let this out of my sight. Technology can be unreliable in these mountains. Abraham's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood in the doorway, his massive frame sealing off their exit. The soil, the air, strange things happen. Devices misbehave. Leo gripped his camera. Did you tamper with our equipment? Abraham's grin stretched unnaturally across his elongated features. How could I? I've been with Dr. Hayes. You've kept your camera close. Perhaps you only imagine taking those photos. Visitors often think they've seen things, recorded things. But the mind, it plays tricks on Blackwood land. Our minds are sound, Morgan snapped. And we've learned what we came to learn. Thank you for your hospitality, but it's time we return to town. Of course. Abraham's tone was genial, but his amber gaze remained glacial. Though I fear your vehicle may not cooperate, Leo frowned. What do you mean? I had Caleb check this morning. Engine trouble. My sons are skilled, but parts are scarce. It may take a day or two. Morgan and Leo exchanged a sharp glance. They hadn't driven here. Jason from town had dropped them off. Abraham was lying deliberately. He knew they had no car. We'll walk to the main road, Leo said quickly. Call for help there. Service is unreliable. And the storm washed out the road last night. Dangerous terrain. Abraham's voice softened, yet the edge beneath it was undeniable. Best you stay another night. We insist, Morgan answered coldly. The words carried their own threat. Abraham tilted his head in that uncanny canine way. Do your colleagues know precisely where you are? Most outsiders cannot find this property without assistance. The truth pressed down like a weight. No one knew. Jason hadn't even seen the house. We'll check the car ourselves, Leo said firmly. Abraham shrugged, calling out for Caleb. The boy appeared instantly as if waiting in the shadows. His father muttered instructions in that strange hybrid tongue part, English part, guttural growl. Caleb nodded and gestured for them to follow. Outside the day had dulled clouds thickening overhead. The forest loomed dark, oppressive. Caleb led them toward the place their bags had been dropped, the very spot a car would have been parked had there been one. No vehicle here, Caleb said, voice mocking. Perhaps you walked farther than you recall. Leo stepped forward, anger flaring. Your father said our car had engine trouble. Now you claim there's no car at all. Which lie should we believe? Caleb's amber eyes burned with amusement. Outsiders become confused on our land. Memory bends. Our memories are fine, Morgan retorted. And we are leaving. Today. Impossible, Caleb replied smoothly. The road is washed out. Night comes early in these mountains. He sniffed the air animal-like. Another storm is near. You'll stay until morning. As if to seal his words, thunder rumbled over the ridges. This is insane, Leo muttered, yanking out his phone. No bars, no service. Caleb smirked. I told you, nothing works here as it should. Their silence on the walk back to the house felt heavier than words. More Blackwoods had emerged, drifting from barns and sheds, moving with deliberate purpose. Animals were secured, shutters latched, the property sealed, like a fortress bracing for siege. Caleb noticed Morgan's gaze. His smile was thin, unsettling. Tonight is special. The storm pressed closer, each rumble of thunder drawing something feral to the surface. You'll want to remain in your room after dark, Caleb had warned. Inside, Abraham stood with Martha in the front hall, his bulk casting long shadows. You see, he said evenly, no vehicle. Memory is fragile. Stop gaslighting us, Leo snapped. His voice cracked like a whip in the heavy air. We know what's happening here. We've seen the cemetery, the kennels. We know about the doctor you killed. Abraham's expression didn't shift, but the air itself grew colder, as though the house inhaled. You've been speaking with little Sarah, he murmured. Children tell truths, Morgan counted her voice steady, while adults try to bury them. Martha stepped forward suddenly, shoulders jerking with tension. Abraham, they know too much. They'll bring others. They'll stay the night, Abraham said, his tone final. We'll discuss their departure in the morning, after they've experienced a Blackwood gathering. The look that flickered between him and Martha chilled Morgan to her marrow. Whatever this gathering was, she and Leo could not be there. Martha will bring your dinner to your room, Abraham added pleasantly. Rest. Tonight will be illuminating. Back in their room, Morgan paced, while Leo rattled the shuttered window. It was nailed from the outside. We're prisoners, he muttered. They're not even pretending anymore, Morgan said grimly. We need out before sundown. Abraham mentioned a gathering. Sarah might help, Leo suggested. She's terrified. If we can find her. Morgan checked her watch. Sunsets at 6:30. 3 hours. A knock. Martha entered with a tray of burly cooked meat and coarse bread. She avoided their eyes. Abraham says, eat. Keep your strength. For what Leo challenged. The gathering, Martha said tightly. It's sacred. Tonight the change comes forward. We honor our true nature. And us, Morgan pressed. Martha's eyes flicked up at last. Not anger, fear. I've said too much. Eat. Rest. She locked the door behind her. Well, Leo muttered, that was comforting. Morgan pressed her ear to the wood. Silence. Then the faint scuff of Martha retreating. She turned, jaw set. We need another exit. Doors locked, Leo reminded her. Morgan slid a hairpin from her bun. I didn't spend 3 years in the field without learning a trick or two. Minutes later, the lock clicked. Remind me never to underestimate you. Leo breathed. Save it for when we're out. She whispered, easing the door open. The hallways were deserted, the house a twisting labyrinth of narrow corridors. They moved like ghosts, avoiding the murmurs and footsteps above. At the base of the stairs, Morgan pointed. Their cellar. A heavy padlock sealed the door. You'll need this, came a small voice. They spun. Sarah stood in the shadows, clutching a key. Morgan knelt. Sarah, we need to leave tonight. Will you help us? The child nodded solemnly. That's why I brought it. The cellar leads to old tunnels. From when the first Blackwoods hid from what Leo asked. Townsfolk, Sarah whispered. They tried to burn the house when they saw the changes. She pressed the iron key into Morgan's palm. The tunnels lead past the cemetery. Come with us, Morgan urged. Before it's too late. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. Papa would track me. His nose is strongest. Mine is getting stronger too. I smelled you from upstairs. We can protect you, Leo said fiercely. Not from them. Not when they've changed. She glanced back nervously. They're preparing now. You have to go. The doctor said the same, she whispered. Before they caught him, the words dropped like stones. Morgan hugged her tightly. We'll send help. Sarah's smile was heartbreakingly adult. No one can help us. Save yourselves. She melted back into the shadows, unnaturally swift. The key fit the lock. With a loud metallic click, the cellar door swung open, releasing a stench of damp earth musk and something fouler. Ready, Morgan whispered. Leo nodded. Into the wolves' den they descended. The cellar stretched wide, lined with shelves of preserved food and rusted tools. But the far wall stole their breath. A row of iron cages built into the stone. Oh my God, Leo whispered. 3 cages were occupied. Shapes huddled in the dark, neither fully human nor beast. They crouched on twisted limbs, faces stretched into muzzles, eyes glowing when caught by the light. The ones who fought the change, Morgan breathed. Horror and fascination warred within her. Above them, a crude sign read, "The Resistant Ones." Here, Leo hissed, waving from the far corner. A false wall swung outward, revealing a tunnel beyond. But before they could move, one of the caged creatures lunged, seizing the bars with clawed hands. "Run," it rasped. "They come." From above, a howl split the air. Others answered in a terrible chorus. The gathering, Leo whispered. They wrenched at the hidden door. The timbers groaned, opening slowly into a black passage. Then footsteps pounded on the stairs. They killed their light, pressing into the shadows. Abraham descended, first, followed by 3 of the elders. Their shapes in the dim light were grotesque hunched backs. Limbs, 2 long faces stretched into half-formed muzzles. They moved with a fluid, inhuman grace, each step echoing like the prelude to a hunt. The earth pressed close around them, the timber beams groaning faintly, as if the tunnels themselves resented their presence. The smell was suffocating damp soil rot and something older feral. Morgan's breath came shallow, every inhale scraping her throat. "Keep moving," Leo urged, though his own voice trembled. He clutched the phone tightly, its glow a fragile barrier against the dark. From behind came muffled echoes, the scrape of claws on stone, the wet pant of exertion. Somewhere farther back, Abraham's guttural growl reverberated through the tunnels like a living presence. "You can't run from blood," his voice carried. "The pack always finds its own." Morgan bit back panic. "Ignore him. Just forward." Sarah said, "This leads to the woods." The crawl space twisted sharply, scraping their shoulders against damp earth. At one point, the passage narrowed so tightly that Morgan had to exhale fully to slide through. She felt the weight of the hillside pressing down on her, as though the Blackwoods themselves had carved this place to crush outsiders. Leo's phone flickered, the battery failing. For a heartbeat, they were plunged into absolute blackness. From somewhere close behind, a low, chuffing breath answered their fear. The light returned just in time to reveal claw marks etched into the beams around them. Gouges too deep for any human hand. "Faster," Leo urged, scrambling ahead. The tunnel abruptly dropped, sending them sliding down a slope of loose earth and splintered wood. They tumbled into a wider chamber, sprawling across the floor. The light caught on something metallic, rusted tools, broken chains, and bones scattered like discarded toys. Morgan froze. The bones weren't just animal. A human skull grinned from the corner, its jaw split wide as though torn apart. Leo swallowed hard, raising the phone to scan the chamber. In the far wall, a crude wooden ladder led upward toward a faint suggestion of moonlight seeping through cracks. Exit. Morgan whispered, hope surging, but before they could move, a sound rose from the tunnel. They had fallen through a chorus of howls, layered and resonant, crawling along their spines. The pack had caught their scent. Morgan seized Leo's arm. Climb, now. Leo shoved the phone into his pocket and started up the ladder, its ancient wood creaking under his weight. Morgan followed close behind, every nerve alive, with the knowledge that something was surging toward them in the dark below. Halfway up the ladder, shuddered violently as claws raked against it. A pale arm, half human, half beast, shot out from the opening, grasping for Morgan's ankle. She kicked hard boot, connecting with wet flesh, and the arm recoiled with an enraged snarl. The ladder groaned, but held. With a final, desperate effort, they reached the top, pushing at the rotting planks. The boards gave way in a splintering crash, spilling them into open air. They rolled onto damp grass beneath a sky split by storm clouds. The scent of rain, sharp and clean, cut through the cellar stench. For a brief second, the cool night felt like salvation. But then, the howls rose again, closer now, threading through the trees. The blackwoods were already above ground. Morgan staggered to her feet, pulling Leo up beside her. Ahead lay the cemetery, its stones jagged silhouettes in the lightning-streaked sky. The outsider's grave loomed at the far edge, fresh earth glistening like a wound. We can't stop, Morgan said, gripping his hand. The woods are past the graves. If we reach them, a thunderclap split the night, and with it came the sound of branches snapping, heavy bodies moving fast through the dark. The hunt had begun. The tunnel narrowed until it felt less like a passage and more like a vein, carved through the earth, pressing them in on all sides. Damp soil crumbled against their shoulders with every movement. Sarah crawled quickly, despite her trembling, her small hands finding holds in the dirt, as though she had done this countless times. Morgan tried to match her pace, heart hammering. Every scrape of Leo's boots behind her seemed deafening. She whispered, "Stay quiet, stay close." From somewhere far back, a chorus of howls threaded through the soil. The sound carried too well in these tunnels, low resonant, vibrating in their bones. Abraham's voice rose among them, warped and monstrous. "Sarah, child of my blood, you cannot run." Sarah froze for a heartbeat, her body tensing. Morgan reached forward, touching her arm gently. "Ignore him. Keep going. You're stronger than his voice." The girl swallowed hard, then pushed forward again, faster this time. The tunnel dipped suddenly, then curved upward. Morgan noticed that Sarah's movements had become unnervingly fluid. Her hunched posture, her speed in the cramped passage. Half blessing, half omen. "Not far," Sarah whispered again, though her voice shook. "It comes out by the stream, near the stone boundary." Leo, struggling against the closeness of the passage, muttered, "Boundary." Sarah glanced over her shoulder, eyes reflecting faint amber in the dim light. Where the old ones said the curse thins. Past it, they can't follow as easily. She winced as another spasm rippled through her shoulders, forcing her to pause. A growl rose unbidden from her throat before she forced it down, trembling. Morgan reached her, quickly brushing damp hair from the child's fevered forehead. "The medicine, maybe it's buying you time. Just hold on." Sarah nodded, though tears streaked her dirt-stained face. "I don't know how long. Sometimes it slows. Sometimes it makes things worse." A noise from behind made all of them jolt, claws raking against wood beams, groaning as larger bodies tried to squeeze through passages never meant for them. Dirt rained down from the ceiling. "They're forcing their way in," Leo whispered harshly. "Move," Morgan urged. "We can't let them trap us." The tunnel angled sharply upward. Sarah scrambled ahead, her fingers bleeding from the frantic climb nails, too long and sharp for a child's. She reached a section where roots tangled across the ceiling, blocking the way. Here she panted, pushed through. Morgan shoved at the roots, dirt falling into her eyes. They gave way suddenly, opening into cold night air. She heaved herself through, pulling Sarah behind, then reached down to help Leo. Together, they tumbled into wet grass, the cool wind of the storm slapping their faces like a rebirth. The woods stretched before them, dark and alive, with the sound of the storm. Behind the tunnel, mouth gaped black and waiting. "Run," Sarah whispered hoarsely. "They'll smell us, but the stream masks scent. If we reach it." A howl split the night closer now, threading through the trees. Lightning illuminated the forest, and in that flash, Morgan glimpsed movement, hulking forms breaking from the cemetery edge, racing toward them on all fours. Leo grabbed Sarah's hand in one of his, Morgan's in the other. "Then we run." And together, they plunged into the storm. The cries of the Blackwood pack in furious pursuit. The tunnel stretched on, forcing them into silence. For long minutes, there was only the rasp of their breathing and the distant echoing howls of the Blackwood pack threading through the earth. Morgan noticed something that gave her the faintest flicker of hope. Sarah's movements had steadied. The spasms that had racked her small body seemed to ease her crawl smoother now. The doctor's formula was working, at least for the moment. At last, Sarah halted, pressing a hand against the earth above them. Moonlight filtered faintly through tangled roots and damp vegetation. "We're here," she whispered, voice tight. "But we have to be careful. They'll be hunting by now." Leo glanced at his watch, squinting in the gloom. "Just past midnight. How far to the road?" 2 miles, Sarah answered, her tone clipped. "But not straight. They'll be waiting if we try that." Morgan guided Sarah upward. Roots gave way beneath her hands, and she pulled the child through the narrow opening before crawling into the hollow base of an ancient oak. Leo squeezed through last relief plane as he straightened his aching back. The forest around them lay in unnatural silence. No insects, no night birds. The stillness itself was a warning. The woods knew the Blackwoods hunted tonight. Sarah cocked her head, listening with heightened senses. At last, she pointed not towards safety but deeper into shadow. This way. There's a stream. It will hide us. They moved carefully, the full moon painting, silver paths between the trees. Sarah walked upright most of the time, but when the ground turned rough, she dropped to all fours, her movements eerily fluid. They paused behind a fallen log, catching breath. Morgan leaned close, whispering, "The medicine. How do you feel?" Sarah brushed trembling fingers along her jaw, where bone had already begun to shift before the dose. "Better. The pain is less, but it's still waiting inside. We'll get you real help," Leo promised firmly. "Proper doctors." Sarah gave him a look, too old for her face. "The last doctor tried. Before they made us eat him." The words dropped between them like a stone. None of them spoke for a long moment. Then Sarah stiffened, suddenly dropping low nostrils, flaring. "Hunting party." From the direction of the house came sounds, swift, deliberate movement, slicing through brush. Not the clumsy stumble of men, but the measured coordination of predators. Short barks and clipped howls rippled through the night, signaling to one another. "They're tracking," Sarah whispered, eyes wide. "Papa leads them. I can smell him." The stream, Leo urged. "We have to reach water." They abandoned stealth. Branches whipped across their faces as they tore through the woods, roots catching at their boots. Sarah raced ahead, sometimes upright, sometimes bounding low, her partial transformation lending her unnatural speed. But the sounds behind grew louder. Closer the pack was gaining. There Morgan cried, pointing where moonlight shimmered on moving water. They splashed into the stream, icy water searing their skin, and staggered downstream, hopping rock to leave no prints on the mud. For a while, only the roar of blood in their ears and the rush of the current accompanied them. "We should split up," Leo panted. "Confuse them." Sarah shook her head violently, droplets flying from her hair. "No, they'll isolate you. That's how the pack kills. Divide, surround, destroy." A howl erupted nearby, startlingly close. Another answered downstream. Morgan's chest tightened. "They're ahead of us." Sarah's eyes widened, pupils reflecting the moon in a feral glow the medicine could not suppress. "We're surrounded." Leo's gaze darted frantically through the trees. The stream wound into a narrow ravine, steep banks hemming them in a perfect funnel. "Back the way we came," he urged. "We'll break through." "Too late," Sarah breathed. Her sharpened senses caught what they could not yet see. Shapes emerged from the tree line. Abraham first, his transformation nearly finished. He moved on all fours with grotesque grace clothes, shredded and clinging in tatters to his reshaped frame. Behind him came Martha Caleb and other elders, their bodies twisted into monstrous hybrids. Faces stretched into snarling muzzles. Abraham stepped into the shallows, eyes burning amber. His voice, half growl, half words, scraped the air. "Family stays with pack." His gaze fixed on Sarah. "Outsiders pray. Or pack. Choose." Morgan shoved Sarah behind, her chin raised. "She's just a child. This curse is killing her." Abraham's massive head swung toward her. His lips curled in a jagged semblance of a smile. Not killing, changing, perfecting. 8 generations evolution, adaptation. It's a disease, Leo snapped, hand sliding toward a half-sunken branch. It can be treated. Abraham snarled the sound, vibrating through the ground. Not disease, ascension. One step, then another, his claws gouged the stream bed. The others followed, encircling them in a semicircle of dripping muzzles and gleaming teeth. Martha's distorted face, lifted eyes, locking on Sarah. A strangled whine broke her muzzle. Sarah, come. The girl pressed against Morgan, trembling. No, mother. I don't want this. Abraham's snarl deepened, fury igniting. Blood calls. You cannot deny. He lunged, massive body exploding forward with impossible speed. Leo swung the branch with both hands, smashing it across Abraham's face. The impact cracked like thunder. Any normal man would have crumpled. Abraham barely staggered. His jaws snapped, shattering the wood as though it were brittle straw. Run! Leo bellowed, shoving Morgan and Sarah toward the narrowest gap in the pack's circle. They bolted Leo, swinging the splintered branch one last time to buy precious seconds. Morgan clutched Sarah's hand, dragging her through the darkness. The girl's small frame moving with startling speed despite fear and exhaustion. Behind them came the sounds of brief struggle. Then Leo's cry of pain. Keep going, he shouted, voice ragged. I'll catch up. Morgan faltered, torn between turning back and protecting the child. But Sarah pulled her onward with sudden, startling strength. We can't help him, she insisted, her voice sharp with terror and certainty. Not against all of them. They ran blindly, the echoes of pursuit receding for the moment. In Morgan's pocket, the doctor's notebook thudded with each step, a fragile hope of understanding and maybe reversing the Blackwood curse. Where now? Morgan gasped when they paused at the edge of a clearing. Sarah pointed toward a jagged ridge etched against the silver moon. The road is beyond it, but we have to move quickly. Her glowing eyes flicked back toward the woods. They're regrouping. And Papa never loses a hunt. Far behind them, Leo stumbled between his captors, arms wrenched cruelly behind him, right shoulder dislocated in the one-sided fight. His body sagged, but his mind clawed for escape. Around him, the pack moved in their unsettling hybrid gait, some on all fours, others hunched in distorted bipedal stances that looked painful yet efficient. Abraham led the procession, a monstrous figure towering above the others, clearing a path through underbrush with sheer bulk. Despite the grotesque reshaping of his body, his eyes glowed with a terrible human cunning. The woman and child. He growled at a younger scout who returned from the trees, still in partial form. East, the boy reported words, clearer, transformation, less advanced. Toward the road. Abraham's sound was something between a bark and a laugh. No escape that way. Caleb's group will intercept. Leo strained against the coarse rope biting into his wrists, but there was no give. What are you going to do to me? He demanded, forcing defiance into his voice. Abraham turned his massive head, amber eyes blazing. You join gathering. Witness our ascension. They broke from the trees into the Blackwood clearing. The sight before Leo froze his blood. At the center, a towering bonfire raged, casting long, writhing shadows across dozens of family members. Some still clung to faint human shapes. Others had already shifted into grotesque hybrids, half human, half canine, their bodies caught in an eternal state of becoming. They circled the flames in a slow, shuffling dance, voices rising in a chant that vibrated through the marrow. It was no language. Leo recognized a sound both primal and impossible, neither human nor wolf, but something far older that lived in the bones of the earth. Near the blaze stood a stone altar. Upon it rested a bowl filled with a dark, viscous liquid. Abraham caught Leo's horrified gaze. Blood ritual, he explained with grim pride, accelerates change, strengthens bond. Leo was hauled to a post near the circle, lashed in place with cruel precision, forced to witness what unfolded. The dancers paused, turning hungry eyes on him. "Where is Sarah Martha?" demanded, padding forward on all fours. Her body was nearly as twisted as Abraham's muzzle, gleaming wet in the firelight. "Safe from you." Leo spat, anger sharp enough to cut through fear. Far from this madness, Martha snarled, lunging, but Abraham's thunderous growl stopped her mid-motion. The hierarchy was absolute. He remained alpha. None dared defy him. "She belongs with pack." Martha whined, head bowed but restless. "She is blood," Abraham declared, "and she will return." The call of blood is stronger than fear. He raised his elongated arms toward the moon voice swelling over the fire. 8 generations, he intoned words rumbling into a guttural growl. 8 generations since Eli Blackwood welcomed the gift of wild dogs into his blood. 8 generations of becoming more than human. A low murmur rippled through the circle, half growl, half chant. Tonight, Abraham thundered, we celebrate our ascension. Tonight, we strengthen our bond. Tonight, we welcome new blood. His eyes fixed on Leo, whose stomach twisted with dread. An elder approached the altar with a rabbit kicking helplessly in his grasp. In one practiced motion, the throat was cut. Blood spilled into the ceremonial bowl, mingling with the dark liquid. Abraham stirred the mixture with clawed fingers. "First blood to awaken," he growled. "Pack blood to guide." One by one, family members drank, each shuddered bodies convulsing as the change surged through them. Bones stretched, faces cracked forward into muzzles, voices sliding into howls. Some dropped to all fours, claws digging trenches into the earth. Leo stared in horror. Whatever virus or parasite haunted this bloodline, the ritual ignited it like fire to oil. Whether biological or psychological, the results were undeniable. When the last had drunk, Abraham turned. His shadow fell over Leo as he carried the bowl. "Now you," he growled. "I'll die before I drink." That Leo hissed, pulling against the ropes. Abraham's twisted mouth split in a grim semblance of a smile. "Not asking you to drink." He set the bowl down, reaching instead for a knife. "You provide next blood. Fresh outsider blood feeds the ritual." Leo's heart hammered. The fire's heat pressed against him like a weight. "Morgan will expose you," he shouted desperately. "She has the doctor's notes proof. The world will know what you've become." Abraham's hand hovered mid-air, knife glinting in the firelight. What about the ones you killed? Leo's voice cracked but carried. He left records, treatments, methods to reverse the changes in children. The words struck like stones in still water. Murmurs rippled through the gathered family. Younger faces turned toward one another, uncertain. Martha, who had never dared oppose the patriarch, stepped forward at last. Her voice trembled with something dangerously close to hope. "Reverse?" she asked. "You mean Sarah? She could be normal again." Abraham's snarl cut through her question like a whip. "No reversal. No cure. We are not diseased. We are ascendant." His gaze swept across the circle. "We are the next stage of predator." A chorus of guttural growls rose from those already lost to the change. But in the eyes of the younger ones, those still clinging to fragments of their humanity, there flickered doubt. Abraham saw it and knew doubt was poison. His decision was immediate. Find the woman, find the child, bring them to the gathering. His amber stare locked on Leo. "After tonight we taste fresh blood." The knife arced downward toward Leo's bound chest. But before steel could find, flesh chaos erupted at the clearing's edge. Two transformed figures staggered into the firelight, dragging a captive between them. "Found him in the tunnels," one announced with pride. He was trying to reach the outsiders. The prisoner was Jacob Caleb's brother, once locked away in the cellar cages. His body bore the signs of change, but his eyes still burned with defiance. They threw him at Abraham's feet. Traitor Abraham growled, "This isn't what we're meant to be." Jacob spat his altered jaw, struggling to shape the words. The doctor was helping us. His medicine? His cure, it was working. Abraham's massive hand closed around Jacob's throat. "You choose weakness over strength." His grip tightened as Jacob clawed for air when suddenly a howl split the night. Distant but unmistakable. Caleb's signal. Abraham's head turned toward the sound, satisfaction curving his lips. They've found them. The gathering will be complete. On the ridge above, Morgan and Sarah caught their breath. The dirt road below lay empty, swallowed by forest darkness. "We follow it toward town," Morgan said, scanning her useless phone. "Someone might drive by." Sarah shook her head, senses sharp as the night itself. "Caleb's pack is coming from that way. They'll have blocked the road. Then we stay parallel to it," Morgan decided. Quiet, fast, and hidden. A howl drifted through the trees, answered by another closer. Sarah froze, every muscle taut. "That's Caleb," she whispered. "They're circling us." Morgan pulled the child close. "Stay calm. Predators want panic. If we run blind, we lose." Sarah's moonlit eyes gleamed. "Papa taught me their hunts. Drive prey into the waiting pack. Then we go where they least expect." Sarah pointed back toward Blackwood Land. "No one runs toward the Alpha." The idea was reckless, terrifying. "Maybe their only chance," Morgan nodded. "We circle wide. Avoid the house. Cut back to the road." They slid down the slope, shadows swallowing their movements. Sarah led with uncanny precision, her heightened senses charting narrow game trails. Twice they froze as hunting parties passed grotesque shapes, moving low, growling orders in clipped barks. They're weaving a net. Sarah breathed after the second patrol vanished. By moonlight, Morgan thumbed through the doctor's notebook. Amid pages of anatomical sketches, one diagram stood out, a hand-drawn map of tunnels beneath the property. Look, she showed Sarah. The girl studied it, nodding slowly. Yes, that one near the old cemetery. It comes out behind the groundskeeper's shed. Nobody uses it. If we can reach it, Morgan whispered, we may slip past them. A howl split the night. Again, Abraham's voice, unmistakable. Sarah stiffened. They've caught Leo, she whispered, anguish cutting her voice. The gathering has begun. Morgan swallowed the guilt, twisting her gut. We'll get help. We'll come back for him. They crept along the western edge of Blackwood Land. The sound of the gathering rolled through the woods, chanting animalistic howls, the rhythm of something no longer human. Near the cemetery, Sarah yanked Morgan down behind a fallen log. Caleb loped past with two young Blackwoods bodies, warped faces stretched into half-formed muzzles, clothes in tatters. Their speed was unnatural, their movements horrifyingly fluid. They're patrolling, Sarah whispered. The tunnel is beyond the stones. Moonlight spilled over leaning gravestones. To reach the entrance, they'd need to cross exposed ground. One at a time, Morgan decided. You first, you're quicker. Sarah hesitated. The medicine is fading. I can feel it. Her jaw had lengthened subtly, but undeniably. We'll find more, Morgan promised, hand soft against her cheek. The vial isn't empty yet. The child steeled herself. At Morgan's signal, she darted a blur between gravestones, vanishing into the shadows of an ancient mausoleum. Morgan readied to follow when a sound behind her froze her veins to ice. The soft scrape of footsteps approached. From the shadows, Martha emerged, her body twisted almost entirely into its new form. In the pale moonlight, she was more beast than woman, save for her eyes. In them still flickered a mother's desperation. Where is she? The words rasped from her throat, distorted, nearly lost beneath growl and fang. Where is my daughter? Morgan rose, steady, planting herself between Martha and the mausoleum where Sarah hid. She doesn't want this, Martha. The change is tearing her apart. Pain fades, Martha growled, circling with an animal's grace. But family remains. She's a child, Morgan pressed, retreating step by step. This is happening too soon. You know it. Something wavered in Martha's gaze, doubt, memory, or the fragile thread of human reason. The doctor said the same, she murmured, voice thick before Abraham silenced him. He was trying to help, Morgan urged. Slowly she drew the vial from her pocket, letting moonlight glint off the glass. This medicine delays the change. It can give Sarah years of childhood before. Martha's eyes locked on the vial, recognition stirring. Jacob improved? For a time. Sarah can too, Morgan said softly. Let us go for her sake. For your daughter. For a moment, the mother warred with the beast. Then a hunting horn blared from the main house, echoing through the trees. The sound snapped Martha's head up. Her fleeting humanity drowned beneath the pull of the pack. Abraham calls, she growled. Muscles bunched. All must answer. With terrifying speed, she lunged. Morgan threw herself sideways as claws slashed empty air. She hit the ground, rolled between gravestones. Martha wheeled, predatory and relentless. Sarah ran. Morgan cried, abandoning stealth. The tunnel. Martha's head snapped toward the mausoleum. A howl tore from her throat, half command, half plea, and she charged toward her daughter. Desperate, Morgan grabbed a fallen branch, swinging as Martha blurred past. The blow connected, but hardly slowed her. Sarah burst from hiding her face, already shifting in small, agonizing ways, as if fear itself accelerated the change. Sarah Martha howled, distorted, yet recognizable. Come to back. The child stumbled, torn between instinct and terror. Morgan sprinted breath-ragged, reaching the tunnel's hidden entrance, just as Martha cornered Sarah against stone. Stay back, Morgan shouted, brandishing her branch like a weapon. Martha turned, snarling, caught between mother and predator. That heartbeat of hesitation was enough. Sarah bolted past, clutching Morgan's side. The tunnel. She gasped, pointing to a dark gap beneath a tilted stone. They scrambled toward it as the woods thundered with answering howls. Packs were closing in. Martha froze, torn between blood and bond. Then with a roar she wheeled, not on her daughter, but on the hunters spilling from the trees. She threw herself at them, claws, raking teeth, flashing. Mother Sarah's cry was strangled with grief. Go, Martha, growled her body, a wall of defiance. Morgan pulled the child into the dark tunnel as the clearing erupted in snarls and violence. The last glimpse before the earth swallowed them was Martha, standing against her kin, a mother's love briefly stronger than the pack. The cemetery tunnel pressed in around them, older than the others, its beams creaking under the earth. Morgan led with her phone's weak beam, the child close at her side. Where does it end? Morgan asked, breath echoing off damp walls. At the shed, Sarah whispered, her voice, slurred jaw, lengthening again. The doctor lived there, studied us. The passage plunged steeply, then leveled. Above them, muffled howls clawed at the soil. Sarah flinched at each sound, her sharpened senses painting pursuit as closer than it was. Your mother, Morgan murmured. She helped us. Tears welled in Sarah's amber-tinged eyes. She loves me, even through this. After endless crawling, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber. Unlike the children's hideaway, this one bore the mark of study. Shelves sagged with dust and jars. A folding table held scattered notebooks, slides and instruments. The doctor's lab, Sarah whispered. Papa said he destroyed it. Morgan swept her flashlight across the mess. Abraham never found this. These are original records. She skimmed dense notes, blood analyses, genetic charts, treatment experiments. One passage froze her. The Blackwood condition presents as a prion-derived affliction inducing stable genetic mutations. Each generation accelerates. Adolescents trigger earliest under hormonal surges. Sarah touched her face, uneasy. He told me. I was too early. Something wrong. Morgan turned another page. Youngest subject. Sarah, age 7. Early onset, likely ritual exposure. Prion levels elevated consistent with advanced cases. Time critical. Once skeletal restructuring begins, reversal impossible. She looked at the child body bending toward wolfish form eyes, still pleadingly human. He was working on a treatment just for you. At the chamber's far end, a small refrigeration unit still hummed faintly. Inside, rows of labeled vials glittered cold. Experimental anti-prion therapy, Morgan read. Promising for early stages. Reverses protein folding. Stops the change. Her finger lingered on the warning, ineffective once advanced. Severe distress possible if cognition returns to altered bodies. Sarah's gaze clung to the vials. Is there one for me? Morgan's hand trembled as she lifted a vial marked with Sarah's name, dated only months ago. Yes, this is newer, more refined. But before she could pocket it, the tunnel behind them came alive with sound scratching claws on stone, the wet rasp of hungry breath. The pack was closing in. The Blackwoods had found the entrance. They're coming. Sarah whimpered, trembling as fear warred with the creeping pull of her transformation. Morgan worked fast. She swept research materials from the doctor's desk into a worn canvas bag, a handful of notebooks, the labeled vials from the refrigeration unit, a USB drive glinting with microscope scans. Every second mattered. There's another way out, Sarah urged, pointing to a half-hidden door behind a shelf. It leads to the woods. Behind the shed, they shoved it open, hinges shrieking with rust. The narrow tunnel spat them out into a small clearing, dominated by a leaning wooden shed, the groundskeeper's quarters where the doctor had lived while studying them. We need inside, Morgan said, eyes flicking to the sagging door. There might be more. The shed hung half-open moonlight, spilling through broken panes. Inside lay a sparse room, a desk, a kitchenette papers strewn as though abandoned mid-flight. Morgan rifled through searching. Most drawers had been stripped bare, plundered long ago. But one was locked, splintered from an attempt to force it. Using a letter opener, she pried it free. Inside lay a satellite phone and a sealed envelope addressed to medical authorities. This could save us, she whispered, thumbing the phone. It was off, but intact. Sarah stiffened. Her nostrils flared. They're close. Morgan powered on the phone, relief surging when it lit with signal. She dialed. 911. The door exploded inward. Abraham filled the frame, monstrous now, more beast than man. His silhouette eclipsed the moonlight. His eyes molten amber. Found you, he growled. Behind him the pack crowded, blocking the shed in a ring of muscle and fang. Morgan shoved Sarah behind her, clutching the phone as it connected. 911. What's your emergency? A faint voice asked. Abraham lunged. The phone flew from Morgan's hand, clattering across the floor, still active, but out of reach. No outsiders. He snarled, words cracked by his twisted mouth. Family business. Morgan's gaze swept the desk. A journal opened to a page on silver's effect on prion-based disease. Beside it gleamed a silver letter opener catching pale light. Sarah Morgan whispered, not looking away from the beast. When I move, get the phone. Abraham stalked forward, jaws dripping. No escape. Join tonight or feed tonight. Morgan's hand closed on the silver. She raised it, voice steady. There's always another choice. Recognition flashed in Abraham's eyes. A ripple passed through the pack, nervous, uncertain. Silver, Sarah breathed. The doctor proved it burns them. Morgan lifted the blade high. Back off. Let us leave with Sarah. The alpha snarled. She is blood. Blood stays. Her choice, Morgan shot back. Not yours. With a roar, Abraham lunged. Morgan swung in a desperate arc. The blade scraped across his muzzle. Flesh hissed. Smoke rose. Abraham reeled back, howling in agony, far greater than the shallow wound deserved. It works, Morgan realized, heart-hammering. Silver burns, Sarah cried, snatching the phone and clinging to it. At the threshold, the pack whined uneasily, cowed by their alpha's wound. Morgan seized the moment, yanking open a drawer, scattering silver objects into her hands. Letter knives, a tarnished frame. "Stay back!" she shouted, brandishing them like holy relics. Abraham's eyes narrowed, fury burning away pain. "Leo joins?" "Now," he growled. Too late for him. Sarah, phone pressed to her ear, spoke quickly. "Please help us. Blackwood Property, K9 Valley. Dr. Morgan Hayes. Leo Chen." Abraham circled, testing her guard. Morgan jabbed forward, silver flashing. The shed walls shook with his fury, but the pack did not advance. The back wall, Sarah whispered urgently. "It's rotten." "He showed me." Morgan pressed back toward it, silver in hand. She felt the boards give. With a heave, wood splintered outward. Now, Sarah scrambled through as Abraham barked a command. Two young Blackwoods lunged, but Morgan hurled a silver blade. It struck one in the shoulder. He screamed, retreating, flesh searing. It hurts them all, Morgan realized, clutching the last weapons. She rammed through the opening, dragging Sarah with her. Abraham's enraged howl tore after them. They ran through the trees, the pack giving chase, slower, now wary of Silver. "This way," Sarah gasped, tugging Morgan toward a ridge. "From there, we'll see the gathering." They scrambled up, breath ragged, collapsed against the crest. Below lay nightmare. The gathering had reached its frenzy. Blackwoods circled a roaring bonfire, their bodies twisting ever deeper into bestial form. Their dance was ritualistic, primal, terrifying. At the center, Leo, bound, blooded, yet awake. His gaze sharp despite pain. Nearby, Martha too was tied, her rebellion punished. Her eyes still glistened human as she searched the firelit dark, searching for her daughter. "They hurt her," Sarah whispered, trembling. Morgan gripped her shoulder. "Then we'll help them both." She counted her silver 3 blades, a bent frame. Hardly enough against 20. The satellite phone crackled faintly. "Hello, are you still there?" "Yes," Sarah whispered fiercely. "Please hurry. Deputies are on the way to K9 Valley." The dispatcher promised help within 20 minutes. "Can you reach the main road?" Morgan took the phone firmly. "We have people being held against their will. The situation is volatile. Tell the deputies they must bring Silver." "Silver." The dispatcher's voice carried disbelief. "Yes, silver weapons or restraints. It's critical." Morgan knew how irrational it sounded, but there was no time for explanations. "The family is dangerous. They've undergone a mutation that makes them unstable." A howl cut through the night, severing the line of conversation. Abraham had returned to the ritual circle, a burn-like scar seared across his muzzle, where the silver had touched him. He barked commands, guttural and primal, and several transformed kin broke from the circle, bounding toward the ridge. "They've found us," Morgan whispered sharply. Sarah fastest way to the road. Before the child could answer, the underbrush thrashed open beside them. Jacob emerged half human, half beast. His body was grotesquely uneven, one arm longer than the other jaw, crooked amber eyes burning with both pain and reason. This way he gasped, his voice warped by his twisted mouth. "I know a path." Morgan raised the silver blade between them. "Why should we trust you?" "The doctor helped me before Abraham stopped him. I want the cure to work." Jacob's gaze flicked to Sarah, pleading. "For the children." Sarah recognized him despite the distortion. "Cousin Jacob, you escaped the kennels." He nodded jerkily. "During the gathering, most are too far gone to notice me. Hurry before they catch our scent." Morgan hesitated only a second. Jacob's body betrayed the beast, but his eyes held the man. "Lead on. But if you turn on us..." She lifted the silver blade meaningfully. "I understand," Jacob rasped. They followed him along a nearly invisible deer trail, skirting the ritual fire. His gait was uneven, lurching between 2 legs and 4 as his mutation fought for dominance. The medicine worked for a while, he admitted, breath ragged. But Abraham forced more blood into me. The ritual made it worse. Left me caught in between. From the ridge, they crouched, peering down at the fire pit. The ritual was in full frenzy. Leo was bound to oppose blooded but alert eyes, reflecting a cold scientific awareness, even through pain. Nearby, Martha was lashed to a stake as well, her advanced transformation punished for defiance. Despite the muzzle-like distortion, her eyes scoured the shadows, searching for her daughter. "There are too many," Morgan murmured. Jacob's disfigured lips twisted into a grim smile. "The gathering has a weakness. When the change peaks, human thoughts vanish. Instinct takes over." "What kind of instincts, predator?" "Chase, hunt, feed." Sarah's voice was small but clear, like when Papa hunts deer. If one runs, they all follow. Morgan's pulse quickened. "So we give them something to chase." "I'll do it," Jacob said without hesitation. "They'll follow me. You save Sarah, save the ones still young." Morgan gripped his deformed shoulder. "You're not lost, Jacob. The doctor's notes there might still be hope." Hope flickered in his amber eyes, but he shook his head. "Too late for me. Just promise me you'll come back for the children." Before she could answer, Abraham's howl split the night. The hunting packs were closing, now or never. Jacob surged to his feet. "When they see me run." Without waiting, he bolted from cover, throwing back his head in a terrible half-human howl that drew every transformed gaze. Abraham roared, rallying his kin, and the majority of the pack thundered after the challenger. Instinct ruled chase the rival, kill the pretender. Now Morgan hissed, dragging Sarah downslope. They darted toward the fire pit as Jacob vanished into the forest, the pack boiling after him. Only 2 guards remained their attention, torn between captives and chase. Morgan slipped from the shadows, silver blade ready. Sarah crept around to her mother's side, her senses lending her uncanny stealth. Leo's eyes widened in warning as one guard caught their scent. He lunged at Morgan, claws flashing. She slashed across his chest, the silver burnt smoke hissing from the wound. The guard reeled back, howling in agony. "Morgan! Behind you!" Leo shouted. She spun just in time, meeting the second guard's rush with a desperate thrust. The blade carved his arm, driving him back, yelping. Sarah was already at Martha's side, working her small hands against the ropes. Martha whined deep in her throat, pressing her muzzle against her daughter in a grotesque but tender gesture. Morgan cut Leo free with quick, brutal strokes. "Can you move?" she asked. Leo staggered upright, flexing his numb hands. "Run. Now." Abraham won't stay distracted long. From the forest came a scream that broke into a canine yelp. Jacob's diversion had met its grim end. "We need to go," Morgan said, urgency, sharpening her tone. First light bled across the eastern ridge as the four of them fled into the trees. Morgan, Leo, Sarah, and Martha. Behind them, the pack's pursuit fractured howls, scattered and disorganized. "They weaken in daylight," Martha rasped, struggling to walk on two legs. The change retreats. Human thoughts return. Her monstrous form betrayed her, but her eyes burned with a mother's fierce devotion as she shielded Sarah from the rough forest terrain. Leo limped beside Morgan, his face battered, one arm clutched tight against his ribs. "Their patterns," he panted. Breaking down. Cohesion lost with the sun. The doctor's notes had hinted at circadian influences on the transformation. Morgan repeated this aloud as she checked the satellite phone. The connection to emergency services remained open, though no new voices had come through. "The prion proteins are more active at night," she recalled. Sarah stumbled, her small body convulsing with a spasm of pain. The medication's effects were wearing thin, her features beginning to slip once more toward the grotesque family pattern. Martha whined softly, nuzzling her daughter with a distorted muzzle. The moment was both tender and unbearable maternal love, delivered through monstrous features. "We need another dose," Morgan said, pulling a vial from her pocket. "And we must reach the road before Abraham rallies his pack." The dirt road emerged ahead, a faint ribbon through the forest. Then the sound engines, multiple vehicles grew steadily louder. Relief flickered across Leo's battered face. "Help is here. We made it." At the forest's edge, Martha froze. Her warped body stiffened with instinct. "I cannot go," she murmured, each word heavy with effort. "Look at me, at what I've become." Sarah clutched her mother's clawed hand desperately. "The medicine might help you too." Martha's elongated features sagged with sorrow. Too late. Bones set change complete. Her eyes lingered on the road with aching longing. "You go. Live human life." "Come with us," Sarah begged. "They can help." "They would cage me," Martha answered with terrible clarity. "Study me." And they should. She stroked her daughter's hair with clawed fingers, careful not to harm. "But you can still be saved." Around the bend came two sheriff's SUVs and an ambulance. As headlights cut through the trees, Martha retreated deeper into shadow. Martha Morgan called urgently. "Others like Jacob, the ones still fighting. Can you help them escape?" Her amber eyes glowed with purpose. "The children. I will protect them." "Will come back," Morgan promised. "With real medical help. The doctor's work gives us a chance." Martha bent, low, nuzzling her daughter one final time. Her voice was a guttural vow. Save my daughter first. Abraham will not stop, not while any of his blood runs free. Then she turned and bounded into the forest on all fours, vanishing as the vehicles screeched to a halt. Chaos unfolded. Deputies fanned out, weapons raised. Their skepticism crumbled when confronted with Sarah's partial transformation and the doctor's exhaustive records. The open satellite call had captured parts of the confrontation, undeniable evidence of something unnatural in Kine Valley. As paramedics examined, Leo Morgan administered Sarah another dose of the formula under medical supervision. The child's agony eased her shifting features, stalling. It works. Morgan told the lead deputy, a seasoned man introducing himself as Sheriff Holden. But only temporarily. She needs specialized care. We've contacted the CDC and FBI. Holden replied, grim. Specialists are already inbound. This is far bigger than our department. Morgan pressed the doctor's journal into his hands. Everything's here. 8 generations of controlled mutation ritual exposure to a corrupted prion disease. They've bred a human-canine hybrid line. Holden shook his head in disbelief. In all my years, I dismissed the old stories. Locals called them dog people. I thought it was superstition. Sometimes legends start with biology. Leo murmured, wincing as his ribs were wrapped. Folk horror is often science the community couldn't explain. The sky brightened fully. A howl drifted from the forest, Abraham's voice, summoning what remained of his pack. Deputies stiffened, reaching for weapons. They won't attack. Now, Sarah said with certainty. Daylight weakens them. Too many humans watching. They'll go underground. Wait for night. Holden studied the child, weary compassion in his eyes. We'll surround the land. State police are already locking it down. They won't leave, Sarah whispered. 8 generations. That land is their blood. Paramedics lifted her into the ambulance. Morgan sat beside her, promising gently, You'll be okay, Sarah. The doctor's notes give us a path. Early changes can be reversed. Sarah leaned into her, small again, almost ordinary. What about the others? The children. We'll go back for them. Morgan vowed. All of them. As the doors closed, Morgan glimpsed the tree line. For a fleeting second, amber eyes shimmered from the shadows, Martha watching her daughter's escape. Leo stood beside her as the ambulance rolled away. Sarah's pale face pressed against the glass. What now? He asked quietly. Morgan clutched the journals and vials, their burden and responsibility. Now, we make sure Sarah survives. Then we teach the authorities what the Blackwoods really are. She thought of Abraham, culmination of 8 generations of mutation. She thought of Martha, torn between monstrosity and love. She thought of Jacob straining against the inevitable. Some may be beyond saving, but the children deserve a future. As they climbed into a deputy's SUV, Morgan looked back once more. The Blackwood property hid behind the tree line, its secrets dragged into daylight. Science would dissect what legend once concealed. Containment would replace whispers. 3 days later, Sarah sat in a pediatric hospital bed, machines tracing her vitals as doctors refined the treatment. Already her face had softened back into human contours, the monstrous changes retreating. "Will I be fully human again?" she asked softly when Morgan visited, offering her a stuffed animal. "The doctors think so," Morgan said, though the truth was murkier. Some changes might linger. Buried deep in her blood, passed silently through generations. Sarah's amber-flecked eyes locked with hers, unsettlingly direct. "Papa said we could never escape our blood, that the change was destiny." Morgan squeezed her hand, relieved to see the nails smooth and human again. "Destiny isn't blood, Sarah. It's choice, science, understanding." Sarah nodded, content. Yet, as twilight darkened the window, her head tilted sharply, ears attuned to sounds too faint for ordinary hearing. For a heartbeat, a canine alertness flickered across her face before fading. Morgan forced herself to smile, making a private note in her journal. The Blackwood bloodline carried 8 generations of change. Suppressed perhaps, but never fully erased. And outside, the full moon rose above the mountains. And so the Blackwood mystery does not end with the hospital lights or the pages of the doctor's notes. It lingers in the hush of the forest, in the memory of amber eyes watching from the tree line, in the faint echo of a howl carried across the mountains. Science may dissect the legacy, authorities may contain it, but legends have a way of seeping back into the soil, waiting for the right moment to rise again. For Sarah, the future remains uncertain. Perhaps she will grow up wholly human, or perhaps fragments of her heritage will surface in ways no medicine can erase. And perhaps that is the true weight of the story, not only what the Blackwoods became, but what they left behind. If you've stayed with me through this long night's telling, I hope the shadows feel a little closer, and the silence of the woods a little heavier. These stories remind us that history is never just the past, it breathes beside us, sometimes in ways we wish it wouldn't. If you'd like to wander deeper into mysteries like this one, into forgotten records, whispered folklore, and uneasy truths, I invite you to join me here. Subscribe to Sleepy History Tales, where every story is a path into the unknown, told slowly, quietly, for those willing to listen until the end. And until our next tale, sleep well and remember, some legends are only sleeping.